What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday and welcome back to the Security Token Show. We've got the latest and greatest tokenization of real-world assets news for you. We're your hosts. I'm Herwig, joined as always every week here by my co-host Kyle. How are you this week, buddy?
Herwig, it is great to be back. Sorry I missed the show last week, but I saw you picked up and didn't miss a step. It's so good to be here, and we have a really great week of news, not only for us to discuss together, but some fun new faces that join the show.
Coming off hot off the heels off the Robinhood news last week, caused a lot of commotion, did not stop the RWA summer of news here. So with that, let's get into the market movements. All righty, and as always, we're going to cover some of the greatest headlines happening this week with some of the industry's finest. And this week, we got some new faces on the show, joined here by Ray Buckton from RWA World and Zeus, known RWA influencer, I'm going to call him. Why don't you guys give yourselves a quick introduction? Let's start with you, Ray.
Yeah, happy to do it. GM, everybody. Ray Buckton here, head of research at RWA World. I am a self-admitted tokenization nerd. I write a newsletter every week. We do a lot of work with data over at RWA World. I'm happy to be here with the famous Kyle and Herwig, of course, Zeus as well, to talk markets.
Zeus, what's going on? Glad to have you, Ray.
Yo, GM guys. Good to be here. A little bit about me. I like to call myself the front line of RWAs. I'm the guy you go to if you're clueless, you don't know a thing. If you wanna get into the details, you go over to your man Ray or Herwig. But yeah, I like to see myself as the front line, as the educator, the guide, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, happy to be here and be on the show.
He's your guide, as I like to say, to RWA. Definitely give him a follow on X. He's also managing one of the best Telegram channels. If you can get in, definitely give him a follow, and maybe he may just send you an invite. But guys, we got some news to cover this week. Lots of action, of course. We talked about last week and all this week on our various X spaces that we do all throughout the week. By the way, everybody here on the show has X spaces throughout the week. So again, give us a follow on Twitter, on X, to learn about those. But I'm going to start off with a pretty large raise. We always talk about stable coins, the biggest RWA that's out there. Now it seems like everyone and their mother and their grandmother seems to be launching a stable coin. And Agora is one of those companies that's helping make that happen. They just raised $50 million in a Series A. That is an enormous Series A, led by Paradigm and many other strong, prominent VCs. Guys, what are your takes on Mick Van Eck's Agora, of course, with a prominent Van Eck family fame there?
Yeah, they're building a really cool company. They've done a great job. I think they're working with a few ecosystems, but I know that Avalanche has been a big focus for them, which is fantastic. Look, stablecoins are clearly driving the capital markets flows into the real world asset industry. I think a lot of people have been calling stablecoins that killer app of the industry. Herwig, I know that you have some great perspectives on the differences between money market funds and stablecoins and what those things look like and the viability of those products. So I'm sure that they are also looking into those types of products and how they can generate yield alongside these platforms. But I think it'll be interesting. There's a lot of new competitors coming to market against the Circles, against the Tethers, and certainly with how well Circle did on the public markets, it's definitely catching some eyes. So interested to hear what our panelists think about these different stablecoin solutions. When you're acting in the ecosystem, what would make you kind of pick which stablecoin you were going to use, and what are your thoughts on some of these private companies?
No, absolutely. I think it's a huge Series A, Herwig, as you said. And to your point, Kyle, for me personally, day-to-day transactions, I'm a USDC kind of guy just by creature of habit, but we're seeing so many of these come online. I think a lot of this in terms of what your average person is going to use is going to be underpinned by who offers the best infrastructure. So no surprise, we're seeing someone from the Van Eck family dynasty getting into stablecoin infrastructure. I think that people can see the writing on the wall there. We're also seeing RLUSD, Ripple's dollar solution, passing 500 million in issuance. Fiserv working with MasterCard, opening up 3,000 regional banks for stablecoin infrastructure here in the U.S. So we're really kind of seeing a almost starting gun from the Genius Act's passage. So very exciting times for sure, and massive Series A. So congratulations to Nick there.
Yeah, they're a white label stablecoin platform. That's kind of their edge on this market, is that they're going to build the infrastructure that other companies can build stablecoins on top, presumably using Agora's underlying treasury to do so. Zeus, what are your thoughts around stablecoins, and how should customers think about which company they want to use a stablecoin? How do you what are your thoughts on this market?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to miss stablecoins. They are the trend. They are the thing of 2025 in a way. I feel like, for me personally, I'm not much of a stablecoin guy. I'm just an RWA straight up guy. I obviously understand you need stablecoins to access certain developments, certain things within RWAs. But where the money flows, I like to see the money coming in. Obviously, the 50 million raise is brilliant. The more competition, the better. In a way, it just means people keep competing, and for us users, for the normies, it makes it better, because at the end of the day, we're going to get a better deal. So that's kind of the way I view it. As a normie, as an investor.
Yeah. Does this mean we're going to have thousands, if not tens of thousands, of stablecoin options to choose from? Or is this short-term fad that will end up with, maybe a USDC, USDT type dominance? Any quick thoughts on this one, guys?
Yeah, this is I love this kind of question. I think we're going to have thousands of different stable coins. I think they have different yield profiles, different collateral backings and compositions. Of course, that may entail different regulatory structures over time, depending on how these things get viewed by the regulators. But I think, to Zeus's point, and Zeus, you make a great point, your average person that just isn't too interested in that. It's kind of like going to a bank and getting a certificate of deposit, right? It's like, I don't really care what's in the piggy bank. I shake it, it makes nice noise. As long as it keeps spitting out coins, I'm happy about that. So I think we're going to have a thousand flowers blooming sort of thing. But in terms of your average person, they're just happy to see the bright array of colors.
I like that. Well, I guess we'll move on from stable coins, because I'm like Zeus too. I like to go where the yield goes. So I'm a big yield guy, and actually, I want to switch gears a little about a major infrastructure acquisition. So for many who may have not been in the space for a while, may not actually have heard about this company Oasis Pro before, but they raised a monster funding round a while back, and were one of the sort of seemingly big alternatives to Securitize or say T0, because they also had a coveted broker-dealer license designed for trading tokenized securities. And that's a big deal. Not every broker-dealer is created equal in terms of what they're licensed to actually do. And in this case, it was a broker-dealer to transact in a secondary marketplace facility. They also had a transfer agent license, and essentially were building an infrastructure and an ecosystem, right, for tokenization. Now, it seemed like things started to grind down to a halt a little while ago, and there were rumors flying about a potential sale. Now that can absolutely be confirmed, as Ondo seems to be the buyer of Oasis's Pro infrastructure here. And their licensing. So I'm not sure if that also comes with potentially some talent. We know a lot of good folks at that shop that have since left, but it'll be interesting to see how they salvage this. And it once again puts Ondo a step further to building out that whole required licensing and infrastructure. It's not just sort of, hey, we've got an engine to tokenize. Who knows how this might play a role in their upcoming Ondo global markets, or in their other plans to create potentially marketplaces or tokenization services, right? So anyone have any speculation, any thoughts around this acquisition, how this might play out for Ondo, or if it was a good one, or maybe a dumpster fire that they acquired? What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, look, these licenses have been passed around. We saw the Open Finance license go to INX, and then INX go to Republic. Ondo now acquiring this one. I think that running a broker-dealer ATS is very expensive operationally. And if you don't have the distribution solved, it is very difficult to get the funds raised required to break even on that expense year over year. And so some of these companies have raised capital, equity capital, in order to cover those expenses. But obviously, that only goes so far. Once you continue to dilute, raise your valuation, it becomes harder and harder to justify those metrics. And then you end up seeing an acquisition like this tend to happen as another company tries to do the same. And Herwig, you and I have talked about the kind of the roll-up style of play that has happened in the exchange market in the early 2000s, where NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, some of these large players acquired smaller regional exchanges to grow their listing capacity, grow their distribution angle. We've seen something similar starting to happen in our industry, with Securitize buying large transfer agent services to grow their distribution stack. We are now seeing ATS licenses being acquired by companies that aren't trying to necessarily build a startup broker dealer, but they maybe already have the distribution. A company like Ondo that's plugged into a bunch of different blockchains, that already has hundreds of millions of dollars in treasury assets, in money market fund assets, in governance token assets, that they can then start to use and funnel through the regulated capacity, seems to be a more effective strategy than trying to just start this business from the ground up. Coming in with the distribution is probably going to be the key to this market. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Ondo, who's trying to be very institutional in their approach. And I would not be shocked if this is kind of the start of something like this. We know that there are some players that have been around the block for a while, and I can say for sure, I know a few of them have tried to sell in years past unsuccessfully, which means there's probably a few more of these ATS licenses that are up and open on the market.
Ray, Zeus, any thoughts on this?
100%. And I think, Kyle, you hit the absolute bullseye on that, man. I was just having some great conversations previously about market consolidation that we're seeing, and that coveted transfer license is a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. We're seeing a larger and larger interpolation of existing tokenizers want to acquire the litany of licenses that they need in order to essentially play ball. And so with that said, I think this acquisition kind of makes a lot of sense. You're not going to see every company in this industry succeed, and more of the kind of acquisition, almost a roll-up model. I think you illustrated very succinctly and poignantly there. We're going to see more of over the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months, especially as the kind of on-chain markets heat up. That's going to give a little bit more firepower for some of these on-chain entities like Ondo, which has this native governance token that you mentioned, to then in turn continue to expand into those more regulated markets. So exciting times.
Zeus, as an outsider looking in, had you ever even heard of Oasis Pro? What do you care about these licenses? What do you think?
Like you said, as an outsider looking in, have I heard anything about it? Nope. Do I care? Nope. As an investor, all you care about is Ondo's price going to go up? And that's just like, I'm just keeping it real, if I'm being honest. I know.
What's your thoughts on that though? Like, do you think that this is a bullish thing for Ondo and for their token?
I mean, it's good RR, I'd say. I'd say that lots of things over the last 6 months, a year have come out regarding Ondo, and I don't know if the prices necessarily reflected it, but like I said, speaking as an investor, I don't really care. All I care about is, are we going to grow as a company? Am I going to make money? Are my bags going to go up? In terms of, obviously, like you mentioned, Kyle, that, Ondo came into the space and they're targeting the whole institution side of stuff, which is a bit different to kind of what people I work with on the daily are kind of doing. But I think it's good RR for them, and I'm excited to see. But I feel like a lot of these announcement things are, sell the news type thing. You think this is going to happen, and then,
Yeah, well, here's the question. This also does allow Ondo now to list tokenized securities. So they can actually now, with an ATS license, they can actually operate a pseudo exchange. It's not really an exchange from a technical perspective, but from a crypto view perspective, they will be able to sell companies and sell equities in businesses. They'll be able to sell yield-based products or offer staking platforms that have way higher yield because they're backed by a real corporate debt or trade finance or private credit. There is potentially an opportunity here that retail now can use the Ondo platform, which maybe they're already used to, they're used to the name, to actually trade other stuff, which I think maybe is another side of the angle for somebody that's getting involved here. This could be an opportunity to have new investments that before they weren't really aware of or had access to.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, a lot of it comes down to, the opportunities are going to be there, but how do they actually market these opportunities to your regular people? Like I said, coming on the show, I couldn't have told you anything about Oasis. I don't know anything. I don't see that in my feed. Obviously I read news, I read Ray's newsletter, but there's so much stuff to take in sometimes. Stuff just goes over your head. And a lot of the RWA conversation is about how do we actually market this stuff? Yeah, it's going on, but how do we get that across to your degens, your standard normal traders? So it's exciting to see how they're going to do that.
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring up the Ondo price, right? Ultimately, is in relation to what this news might mean for it. But I suspect, I have no insider knowledge on this deal. I suspect that the Ondo token itself might have been an asset used in this transaction to make all of this happen. So it just exemplifies once again why launching a native token, governance token, utility token to an RWA protocol, if you will, of some sorts, that is powerful. It can be an edge in this landscape, this evolving business landscape. And so really, really interesting stuff. Keep your eye on Ondo as they continue to I think, have a lot of big announcements lined up for the next couple of weeks and months. With that, there's another fun article that I came across here that the CEO of Franklin Templeton, Jenny Johnson, personally invited 12 different leaders from prominent Swiss blockchain firms and flew to Switzerland, to Zurich, to take them all out for lunch. There was no agenda topic. It seems like they wanted to announce the fact that this was coming together. So quasi PR stunt, I don't know, but let's have some fun with it, guys. Like, if you were at this meeting, or what do you think, was discussed at this meeting is going to be the outcome of basically Franklin Templeton, one of the most successful asset managers and one of the largest, by the way, in the digital asset space, starting to put their eye on Switzerland.
So if they're going to do a secret meeting in Switzerland, they got to be talking about tokenizing the secret moon base. Or the
sounds like a James Bond thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Exactly. I don't know, Zeus. Your profile picture is generally James Bond. What do you think they're talking about? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I think we all know. I think the idea was to get them all drunk and have a good fun tokenization talk. Obviously, we know Switzerland's the money country, or one of the money countries of the world. So I think it's no secret that they were talking about, how can they integrate Europe even into what America are doing as well? Because the licenses and all that are all a little bit different, a little bit scattered all over the world. But I don't know, it could have been a discussion about something to do with that.
Kind of reminds me of the Bretton Woods agreement, right? The big currency agreement after the war, where it's like, all right, how are we going to cut this whole currency world up? It's kind of a new paradigm for financial management. So it's like, all right, how are we going to kind of sectorize this entire thing across these majors? So really curious. I don't know, Kyle, if you have any insights in terms of that.
Well, I was actually just wondering, Zeus, what, from a normie's perspective, like how do you look at all these different blockchains offering different products? Like when do you kind of end up picking the blockchain network you like the most, and then you look at the products available on that chain? Or is it more about finding a product that you like and then figuring out what chain it's on and then participating through that way and figuring out how to bridge or do whatever to get assets into that network? What comes first, kind of in a chicken or egg kind of scenario?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. For me, I've always been a Solana guy. And so I've always focused on a lot of Solana-based projects, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I just stick to that. I always look at the product, the team, what they're building, and to be honest, it doesn't matter what chain they're on. As long as I can easily get my money on the chain and buy in. It doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. So yeah, always product first. I want the chain to be a good chain. I don't want it to be some, new chain that's maybe not established yet. I want it to be one of the top, the top 10 chains, whatever. And yeah, that's how I kind of judge it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I think that,
So yeah, I have to run, guys, but I want this conversation to keep going. And Herwig, I'll circle back and we'll kill the rest of the episode. But really appreciate you guys being here. And as always, it's enjoyable to be here.
Go take your call. We'll get you back on in a moment. But no, I think especially if they're going to do a little sort of lunch like that, the way that it makes me think is that there's some kind of consortium or some kind of plans to try to get something where it's not like, hey, let's figure out how Franklin Templeton is going to do business with you. They got people for that to go out and do that on behalf of Jenny Johnson. So if Jenny Johnson's inviting them to say, hey, I'm going to take you to lunch and pitch you something, it's got to be something pretty serious. And again, all of this just, screams PR. So that seems like one of the big likely outcomes here. But guys, one last piece of news. We saw the huge attention that Robinhood and also Republic, but Robinhood specifically with their whole tokenization vision being announced last week, got a lot of folks looking at them, including the SEC. Commissioner Hester Peirce actually also released a statement this week saying that just because basically you tokenize it doesn't mean you get to work around any types of rules or disclosures or changes in the security itself. So essentially a reaction and a warning to the market about everybody who's exploring tokenized stocks, whether it's private equities or public equities, that you need to consider every and all facets when it comes to the distribution, the structure, the disclosure, and everything else related to the securities requirements to these underlying instruments that you are tokenizing, which is, coming off the heels of the chairman of the SEC just basically saying tokenization is innovation. We got to embrace it. We got to also take things under consideration. And of course, Robinhood may have gotten the most attention, but X stocks is on fire, right? It's everywhere through Kraken and Gemini, and now BitGet is offering X stocks. I think Bybit we announced last week, right? There is a lot of growth here of tokenized stocks and all the attention that tokenized pre-IPO shares like OpenAI got with Republic and Robinhood, and OpenAI basically disavowing these types of structures. So while I still got you here, Zeus, Ray, who wants to go first on this topic?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a swing at it. I think it's really fascinating. I think it's a healthy thing overall, especially because our industry has a bit of a history of checkered issuances, heralding back to the 2017 ICO craze, right? What do you actually have in terms of a claim to an underlying good, service, or instrument? If you don't have that, then that could be a problem. But ultimately, if you claim to have that, but then don't have that, that is definitively a problem. And I think this is a very poignant warning at a time when we're seeing a huge euphoria in tokenization, kind of writ large, but specifically with tokenized stocks. Ultimately, I definitely echo the SEC that it is an innovation, something we do have to embrace, but we don't want to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of saying, well, let's just invent all new regulations. These consumer protection regulations are here for a reason. And so whether it's SPV, some kind of equity wrapper, understanding whether or not you have a right and claim to the underlying instrument that's claiming to be tokenized is super important. Otherwise, we may end up with a RWA version of Terra Luna, which I don't think anybody wants.
That would be bad. That would be very, very bad. Zeus, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome, to be honest with you. I think the fact that you can you can change a meme coin into a stock is just crazy, and it's something I never thought would happen in the big 2025. But no, I think it's good. I think it's another step forward. Like you've been saying, it's something that's new, and it's all kind of up in the air, and it's going to take time for all the regulations side of stuff. Like I said, I'm not too into all of it, so I just buy whatever comes about and worry about the rest later. And obviously having access 24/7 is another big thing as well. So no, I think it's cool, and I think it helps the kind of the retail side come into crypto as well. It's just more inclusive, and it almost seems fun, like changing a meme coin into something that an actual company. I don't know. It's weird to think about, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
It's the simplest and easiest way to explain to people tokenization, right? We already got the example of cash. People can understand we got a dollar on chain, step 2 is explaining to them what that means, but people understand there are now dollars on chain. The concept of tokenized stocks is really going to once again bring to the mainstream, I think, this concept of tokenization and what that means for finance. And as everybody moves towards this new operating system, there's going to be a lot of new innovation like this, right? It's the first iteration of a whole new wave of structures and capabilities and possibility that's going to emerge from tokenization. And I think a lot of people, whether they're scared or just, risk averse and just, conservative, whatever it may be to this, I definitely am, for one, super excited about this future, because I think it's silly to not embrace these possibilities and capabilities. Obviously, all echoing, of course, Commissioner Peirce's words that you need to follow the rules. I'm a compliance guy at the end of the day. Shout out to a credit token and all the cool on-chain identity stuff they're doing. Yeah, very, very good stuff, guys. Really glad to have you on. Definitely want to get you guys back on the show again soon. Any closing words as we let you go and move on with the show?
Just thanks so much for having me. Absolute pleasure. Follow what we're doing at RWA World. I'm excited to keep building the wave of tokenization along titans like Herwig and Zeus.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to the next one. As you say, happy tokenizing.
Yeah, glad to have you on the show, and the big appearance from Zeus is always awesome. Funny to have you guys both on, because you guys are loud and awesome supporters of the RWA Foundation and what we're doing with Wally. So why don't we get into an update there? Alrighty, everyone. It's time for this week's update from the RWA Foundation, where we've added more members. Once again, I cannot wait to give you the full new cohort, if you will, of new members. But we've got lots of big chains, lots of new token issuers and marketplaces and infrastructure joining the RWA Foundation, which is lining up for, as I mentioned already in the past, our announcement of new ambassadors that are going to be helping promote the mission of RWAs and what we're doing here with Wally, setting the stage for our big announcement of how everyone will be able to participate in receiving some Wally, getting some Wally, and supporting RWAs at the same time, the heart and the mission of what we're trying to do with the RWA Foundation, which, if you don't know, is our industry initiative to bring everyone together and give a voice to the crypto natives and to the users of RWAs through the Wally DAO. You can learn more about that at the wallydao.xyz website. That's WALLY, wallydao.xyz. And every week on Thursdays, we're actually hosting the RWA Watering Hole on X Spaces. We have great guests and contributors like Zeus and Ray, you actually just heard from if you're staying with us here on the show. As well as, of course, many of our members and RWA projects to spotlight for you to learn about what's happening here in the industry, in the space every week. Wow, lots of cool features planned. We're hard at work with our members to come up with some very, very cool ways to bring Wally to life, support RWAs, and support the industry, and, of course, you, the user. Specifically, of course, right? So let's all work together. Come join the herd. We've got a great Telegram community as well. Our white paper is live over there on the wallydao.xyz website. And of course, we got a lot of great announcements you can stay up to date with on our X account at RWA Foundation _. So with that, let's get into the rest of the industry news with the token debrief. Well, a lot of great news we've covered already, but there is way more tokenization news happening. A lot of new token offerings, one that maybe you want to go learn more about. Great news from Mercado Bitcoin, the largest Bitcoin exchange over in Latin America, getting big into RWAs, tokenizing $200 million worth of them on the XRP ledger, and actually partnering with Tenity, TNENITY, for a Singapore accelerator. Very cool to see. Big moves I expect out of the Mercado Bitcoin team. Over in Japan, Gates Inc. is tokenizing $75 million in tokenized real estate using a blockchain called Oasis, OASYS, not Oasis Pro like we talked about earlier on the show. But very cool to see. They actually have ambitious plans to tokenize way more real estate, and they're planning to go public here in the United States. So sounds like a very legitimate company doing big things over in the RWA space in Japan. We'll move over to Europe, where OSR Holdings and BCM Europe are tokenizing a $50 million equity offering out of the United States using the Reg D framework for their OSRT token. So go check out more about that offering that they're planning. Dubai has officially approved a money market fund, the QCD Money Market Fund, that's tokenized by the Qatar National Bank and DMZ Finance, presenting what I believe is the first yield coin, the first tokenized money market fund over there in Dubai, which is a fast-growing ecosystem now. MemberCap also announced the launch of the MCM fund, their first one for reinsurance, which is a very now hot space. We actually just heard from Henri earlier this week about their new vault that they announced last week on our Twitter X Spaces. So very cool to see the reinsurance space continue to leverage tokenization. MemberCap with their new fund now, and an update from Eurex, EUREX, which now supports DLT collateral through HQLAx, which is one of the big platforms out of Germany supporting collateral management on chain. So a lot of big announcements there for new RWAs and some activity, but also big announcements. Plume said they're launching Skylink Omnichain Yield Distribution Protocol on TRON, which is very cool to see some TRON participation, as they were one of the biggest stable coins, starting off with Tether early on, but now they're really moving into RWAs, it looks like, finding a partnership with Plume. R2 Labs, nothing to do with R3, has engaged Particula on their R2 USD stablecoin, which means you can go and learn about their ongoing monitoring and risk management support that they're providing there, which provides transparency and insight, of course, into that stablecoin, which gives security and confidence to all the participants using that stablecoin. So good on Particula for providing that service, and good on R2 Labs for taking advantage of that. Charles Group and the Patel family office, they made an announcement, another one of these billion-dollar pipeline type deals, of course, in real estate, because there's so much of it to tokenize. And they've partnered up, and they announced it at the Global Wealth Conference that they will be tokenizing this, or they have a pact to do so anyway. And over in Hong Kong, we're seeing the third batch of tokenized bonds be almost ready to launch, as we had announced last week that we're going to see more and more of those tokenized bonds come out of Hong Kong. In Switzerland, the Swiss International Exchange and the Banque Pictet and the Sieza, I don't know if I'm saying all that right, Pictet and Sieza, definitely butchering that like crazy, but they've tokenized some corporate debt in the pilot on SDX. That's, of course, the digital arm of SIX. So love to see these pilots happening. It's a sign of probably more activity from that bank to come. And DL Holdings has entered the tokenization game. They now have tokenization services for RWAs over in Hong Kong, which is also really starting to heat up. We also saw some investments in some M&A activity. The Monad Foundation acquired Portal stablecoin infrastructure, which is pretty cool to see more stablecoin M&A activity, IPOs, the whole shebang. This market is red hot for stablecoins. And more importantly, seeing more RWA expansion specifically around Bitcoin as it breaks all-time highs this week. NEXBRIDGE and NextPlace have closed an $8 million Series A led by Fulger Ventures for tokenization using Bitcoin infrastructure. Not new, but certainly needed to encourage more and more activity on smart contract infrastructure, layer 2 infrastructure using the Bitcoin ledger. So awesome news there. Congratulations to those, to NextPlace and NextBridge, I guess. And the Banque of Lithuania is a little surprised about this Robinhood activity and wants to know more, questioning the legitimacy of their, specifically their private company stock initiative. And the Bank of France, the Banque de France, has warned against tokenized money market fund growth, worried about the systematic risk tied to stable coins and money market funds in traditional backing stable coins, and of course now the growth of yield coins and how all of that could have rippling effects across the economy. I think that's, of course, a warning to heed, but if done the right way, especially with legislation now around the block, stable coins and yield coins should flourish. It's the future. It's honestly how everyone can be earning yield every day of every second. It's what banks were supposed to do back in the day. Now yield coins can fill that gap. So ease off a little bit, Banque de France. I appreciate your warning, but let yield coins fly. And that's all of the news this week, which means we've only got one thing left to do on the show. I got to go pick a company of the week with Kyle. Wow, Kyle, what an episode. So much good news to pick from. Our company of the week. But what is the company of the week, Kyle, for those who don't know?
The company of the week is a modern day Pulitzer Prize, a snapshot into the most incredible imagery of innovation, of technological advancement in financial markets infrastructure development. Herwig, this is the coup de grace of the industry. This is the recognition of two companies that are doing the most important work in the tokenization space, as seen by the committee, which consists of myself and you, an unbiased perspective on some of the movers and shakers in the industry. And I do want to add a disclaimer. It's episode 292. We've done 292 episodes and have picked 500 plus winners. It doesn't necessarily need to be the biggest news. It doesn't necessarily need to be the biggest company. It doesn't necessarily need to be the largest amount of funds raised for a company that week. It's just something that caught my eye or caught your eye, Herwig, for one reason or another. There's no method to the madness, no rhyme or reason. It's just the thing that stuck out to us on who is doing something really innovative, who do we want to give a shout out to for something in particular. And for that reason, Herwig, I cannot wait to hear who you selected for companies of the week for episode 292. Please lay it out for us.
Kyle, there was a lot of news to pick from, and everybody doing very cool, interesting, different things. It wasn't everybody launching one token the same thing or everybody getting a new license of the same kind. There's so much to pick from. And as you know, from all these years of doing the show, I've always been a bit of a fan of Japan. I've been watching them rise grow their amazing security token now, ecosystem that's alive and well. They've got a whole infrastructure set up there. All of their investment banks are working together. And now there's another big player, Gates Inc., right, that we talked about tokenizing $75 million worth of real estate in Tokyo on Oasis, Oasys, not the same Oasis Pro that Ondo acquired. And Gates is ambitious. They want to tokenize 1% of Japan's real estate, hundreds of billions of dollars worth. And not only that, they're, of course, doing an F1 and filing here in the United States to go public. So a very cool way to get exposure via the public markets to this real estate tokenization trend over in Japan. So I hope they keep doing what they're doing. They had a lot of success, Kyle. Congratulations, Gates Inc. I love what you're doing. You're my company of the week.
I think this is a great choice. I love international exposure. STM has been a member of the Japan Security Token Association for 5+ years, and we love to support the community out there. I think it makes a ton of sense when I first read this, I thought it was Bill Gates Inc. It's not, but this is the next best thing. And so shout out to Gates for driving innovation in emerging markets and growing the tokenization gospel around the world.
Hey, Bill Gates, if you want to talk about tokenization, give us a shout. Now, Kyle, I don't choose my company of the week every week. So do you. So please tell us, dying with bated breath, who is it this week? Since we didn't get you last week, you got to make up with a big one.
A last minute dropout for me last week. Unfortunately, I missed you all, but it was an awesome episode. So shout out to our panelists and guests last week, and obviously you for carrying the burden. This week, I just wanted to think about an interesting structure. And we've talked for quite so long about money market funds and how this industry has just grown like wildfire, because it really does present a profitable opportunity to still have the consistency of the fiat Forex markets, right? Getting a couple percent from the treasuries on top of having the stability of the local regional currency just is advantageous for local operators that need to keep cash on the balance sheet for operational or investment expenses, but they want to get some yield on it, right? They want to get something for it. But to date, I've really only seen the advent of US-based money market funds. So my company of the week this week is DMZ Finance for getting the approvals to bring a Dubai-based money market fund to the industry. And I think that this is the future of most countries and jurisdictions are likely going to have some sort of tokenized debt or credit structure, government-backed bond, yield product. In this case, a money market fund, a very, very liquid, low yield instrument that often can be treated as cash on a balance sheet for a bank or a financial institution. And so for that reason, I think DMZ deserves a spotlight for driving international adoption of the money market fund product. And I just think that was interesting and wanted to shout them out for that.
Money market funds are so hot. It is, the yield coin trend, as we like to talk about. And as I always like to say, why would you have a stable coin when you can have yield to be earned? And now they're bringing that out in Dubai. And that just goes to show you how fast that ecosystem is coming together too. So many big deals being announced. Now DMZ Finance among them, and coveted to be receiving Kyle's Company of the Week award. So congratulations, DMZ Finance, and thank you and congratulations to everybody who's building in the tokenization space, in the RWA industry. Of course, we're going to be here every week getting you the latest and greatest in the tokenization news. Kyle, anything you want to end on this week? Anything, any updates from the global settlement world? As we know, you just recently announced that huge transaction on your testnet.
Yeah, well, I can definitely tease that there is hopefully another exciting announcement coming soon. It may be a week or 2 weeks away, but building something cool down the pipeline. So, things have been really good. You can go to app.globalsettlement.com to start looking at our tokenization studio and portal. We do a lot of, money services based stuff with a lot of our vendors. So anybody that has digital assets that they need to convert into fiat in corporate transactions, we've been doing some of those things. We're not obviously licensed, but we work with vendors to do that. And of course, tokenization of different commodities transactions is really where we've struck an interesting, carved out a market for us right now. So any commodities issuers, private credit, stuff like that, hit me up.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, everybody, enjoy your weekend. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't. Give us a comment on what you thought about this week's news. Monday's on chain at 11 a.m. next week. That's Eastern time, of course. And the RWA watering hole on Thursdays now at 10 a.m. Eastern. So join us on X while you wait for next Friday's episode. And with that, happy tokenizing, everyone.